The room that knew my name. I moved into the house because it was cheap. That should have been the first warning. But when you're tired of running out of places, you stop asking why something is affordable. You just accept it and tell yourself you'll leave before anything bad happens. The landlord never showed me the inside properly. He unlocked the door, stood outside, and said, "You'll figure it out." That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. The house was quiet when I stepped in. Not peaceful, just paused, like it had been waiting for the door to open. The air inside felt older than the walls, thick, dry, as if too many nights had passed without anyone sleeping properly inside. I closed the door behind me. The sound echoed longer than normal. I remember thinking, this place has too much memory for something so empty. The first thing I noticed was the hallway. It was longer than it looked from outside. No windows, just doors. Too many doors. All closed. At the end of the hallway, a single bulb flickered faintly, like it was struggling to remember how light worked. I didn't open any doors that night. I chose the room closest to the entrance and told myself I'd explore later. That night, I slept with the light on. I woke up at 2:41 a.m. I didn't wake up suddenly. I woke up, already listening. The house wasn't silent anymore. Something was breathing. Slow, steady, not loud, but not mine. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. That's when I heard it. A whisper from inside the room, not behind the walls, not outside the door, inside the room, right beside me, said my name, perfectly, softly, like it had practiced. I froze, didn't turn my head, didn't breathe. The whisper came again. "I knew you'd come." I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. Nothing. No one. Just my room. Exactly the way I left it. Except, there was something written on the wall above the bed. I swear it wasn't there before. For words, carved lightly into the paint, like fingernails had done it slowly. "This room remembers you." I packed my bag immediately. I didn't care about rent. I didn't care about embarrassment. I just wanted out. But when I opened the door, the hallway was different. Longer, darker, and one of the doors was open now. At the very end, the bulb above it was no longer flickering. It was fully on. And from inside that room, I heard breathing. Multiple breaths, all perfectly in sync. That's when I realized something terrible. The house wasn't reacting to me. It already knew me, like I had been here before, like I had lived here and forgot. The door that knew how I died. I stood in front of the door for a long time. The last door in the hallway. The one that had been closed the night before. The one that was open now. From inside, I could hear breathing. Not fast, not scared. Slow, deep, steady. More than one breath. All moving together, as if they were sharing the same lungs. Every part of me knew I should turn around. But the house had a way of removing choices. My feet moved forward before my mind agreed. The moment I stepped inside the room, the smell hit me. Not rot, not mold, something worse. Old air. Air that had been breathed too many times and never released. The room was empty. No bed, no furniture, no windows. Only a wooden chair placed exactly in the center. And on the chair, tall old mirror. Its surface was dull, scratched, and slightly warped, like it had watched too many faces and grown tired of remembering them. I took one step closer, then another, and my chest tightened, because in the mirror, I was not alone. Behind my reflection stood another person. Same height, same face, same eyes, same body, but something was wrong. He wasn't blinking, and there was no sleep in his eyes. None at all. Just awareness. Constant, painful awareness. I spun around. The room was empty. No one there. When I looked back at the mirror, he was still standing behind me. Closer now. His mouth opened, and he spoke before I could. "This is where you died the first time." My heart slammed against my ribs. "I've never been here," I said. "I would remember." The reflection smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, sadly. "That's the problem," he replied. "You don't." The mirror began to tremble. The surface rippled like disturbed water. Images started to appear. Not memories. Scenes. I saw the room filled with people. They were standing shoulder to shoulder. All silent. All facing the chair. Facing me. I could feel their eyes, even though I couldn't see their faces clearly. They weren't watching with anger. They were watching with expectation. The image shifted. Now I was sitting in the chair. My hands were shaking. The door was closed. Something was pressing against it from the outside. Hard. The air inside the room was getting thinner. I could see myself gasping, clutching my chest, trying to scream, but no sound came out. My mouth moved. Nothing followed. I stepped back, dizzy. "Stop," I whispered. The reflection's voice grew heavier. "It doesn't stop," he said. "It repeats." The temperature dropped suddenly, so fast I could see my breath. The walls began to change. Handprints appeared on the surface. From the inside, pushing outward, one after another, as if people were trapped within the walls trying to remember how to escape. The breathing grew louder, closer, no longer coming from one place, but everywhere. I ran back into the hallway, but the hallway was wrong now. Longer, wider, filled with doors. Too many doors. Every single one of them had something carved into the wood. A name. My name. Again, and again, and again. Different handwriting. Same letters. One door creaked open. Inside sat a child. Small. Curled up on the floor. He looked up at me, and my stomach dropped, because he looked exactly like me. At a younger age. His eyes were wide, tired, angry. "Why did you leave us?" he asked. That was when it finally made sense. The house didn't keep people, kept versions. The versions that broke, the versions that stayed, the versions that never got out. I turned and ran, but the house was no longer a place. It was a memory, a mind, a system built from fear and attention. The more I noticed it, the more real it became. Behind me, voices rose together, not shouting, not screaming, speaking calmly, in perfect unison. "You are still here." I reached the front door. My hand closed around the handle. Freedom, finally. But before I opened it, I saw something written across the wood. Fresh, wet, red. "This is where you left us." I opened the door and understood something far worse than being trapped. There was no outside. The versions that never left. I didn't remember walking away from the door, but suddenly I was no longer standing in front of it. The house had moved me. That was the only way to explain it. I was back in the hallway, the same hallway that had already proven it could not be trusted. The lights above flickered softly, one by one, like a slow countdown, and then I heard footsteps, not behind me, ahead, walking toward me. I held my breath and listened. The footsteps were wrong, too familiar. The rhythm matched mine perfectly. The pause between steps, the slight drag of the heel, the hesitation before turning. Someone was walking exactly the way I walk. A door opened on the left, then another on the right, then another behind me. From each room someone stepped out. They all looked like me, not identical, not copies, different ages, different expressions. Some looked tired, some angry, some terrified, some empty, but all of them were awake. All of them were watching me. No one spoke at first. They just stood there, filling the hallway, blocking every direction. One of them stepped forward. He looked older than me. His shoulders were heavier. His eyes were dull, like hope had been used up a long time ago. "You're late," he said. His voice was calm, not accusing, just stating a fact. "What is this place?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than it should have. He looked around the hallway, at the doors, at the walls, at the ceiling. "This," he said slowly, "is what's left when you don't finish leaving." Another version stepped forward. This one looked younger, nervous, hands shaking. "I tried to sleep," he whispered, "but every time I closed my eyes, the house kept going." Another voice joined in, then another, then many, all speaking different sentences, but all saying the same thing. "I tried to ignore it. I stayed too long. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just my head. I thought I had time." The walls around us changed, not visually, emotionally. They felt closer, like the space itself was listening, absorbing every word, every confession, every unfinished thought. I realized something then. The house didn't attack, collected. A door at the end of the hallway opened slowly. Inside was a large room, much larger than the others, dimly lit, endless rows of chairs, and every chair was occupied. Hundreds of people, all silent, all facing forward, all awake. Not all of them looked like me, but all of them looked familiar, like people I might have been, in other lives, with other choices. "What happens in there?" asked. The older version answered. "That's where the house stays." The room breathed, not the people, the room itself, in and out, slow, measured, alive. At the front of the room stood something tall, not a person, not a shadow, not a shape that wanted to be understood. Turned slightly, and I felt it notice me. "That's the listener," someone whispered. "It's built from attention, from fear, from staying." I felt pressure behind my eyes. Memories I didn't recognize began to surface. Nights spent awake in rooms like this, staring at ceilings, listening to sounds that didn't need to exist, letting fear finish sentences my mind started. The house had been with me longer than I thought. Not just here, everywhere. The older version placed a hand on my shoulder. His touch felt real, too real. "You're not the first version to reach this point," he said, "and you won't be the last." "What happens to me?" I asked. He hesitated, then answered honestly. That depends on whether the house still needs you. The listener shifted. The room went silent. Every version of me turned their head at the same time. And then, the house spoke, not with sound, but with certainty. One of you may leave. The chairs creaked as people leaned forward. The air grew heavy. I felt something terrible settle in my chest. Only one? I asked. The house did not answer again. It didn't need to. The rule was already written into the walls. The older version met my eyes. A tired smile crossed his face. "We've been waiting for this," he said. Behind me, the doors began to close, one by one, slowly, softly, locking, and I finally understood the truth. The house doesn't trap everyone. Chooses the version that gets to leave. No one moved after the house spoke. Not because we were frozen, because we were listening. When the house says something once, it never needs to repeat it. One of you may leave. That sentence pressed itself into the walls, into the floor, into my chest. Around me, every version of me understood the same thing at the same time. Leaving didn't mean freedom. It meant replacement. The listener shifted at the front of the room. I couldn't see its face. Every time I tried to focus on it, my vision slid away, like my mind refused to finish the shape. But I could feel its attention, heavy, patient, hungry in a quiet way. "How does it choose?" I asked. My voice echoed too loudly. The older version beside me exhaled slowly. "It doesn't," he said. "It watches." Another version laughed softly, a broken laugh. "It waits to see which one of us still believes they're real." The chairs in the room began to change. Not moving, aging, wood cracking, fabric thinning, dust forming in seconds instead of years. Some of the people sitting in them faded slightly, like bad memories losing detail. Others became sharper, more solid, more present. I realized then what the house was measuring. Not strength, not bravery, tension. The more a version noticed the house, the more the house noticed them back. Fear fed it, curiosity fed it, resistance fed it, but ignorance starved it. A younger version of me stood up suddenly. He looked terrified but determined. "I won't play this," he said. "I'm leaving." He walked toward the exit door at the side of the room. The house didn't stop him. That was the worst part. The door opened easily, too easily. He stepped through and disappeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room inhaled sharply. The chairs creaked. The lights dimmed, and the space where he had been sitting collapsed inward, folding like paper. His seat remained, occupied by something that wasn't shaped like a person anymore. "That's what happens when you try to escape," someone whispered. "You don't leave. You get rewritten." The listener turned slightly toward me. I felt its focus settle. My ears rang. Memories blurred. Thoughts slowed. I became aware of every sensation in my body. Every breath. Every blink. Every fear. "You're very awake," the older version said quietly. "That makes you dangerous. Or useful." I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The house likes witnesses, and I was one. A door opened behind the rows of chairs. From inside, something began to emerge. Not walking, not crawling, unfolding. Versions that had been here too long, too aware, too broken to sit still. Their faces were familiar, but unfinished. like sketches someone stopped caring about. "This is what happens to the rest of us," the older version said. "When the house no longer needs us to think." The listener raised what might have been a hand. The sound in the room dropped away completely. Silence pressed in from all directions. Then the house spoke again. "The one who leaves must carry the house with them." The meaning hit me slowly. Leaving wasn't escape. Leaving was expansion. The house doesn't end. It spreads through people who remember it, who think about it, who talk about it, who stay awake because of it. The older version smiled, a real smile this time. "You understand now," he said. "That's why it chose you." The walls leaned closer. The listener's presence filled my thoughts. I felt the house learning me, my habits, my fears, my voice, preparing to continue itself. Through me, behind me, the doors sealed shut. Ahead of me, the exit appeared, bright, inviting, open. I stood between them, knowing whatever I chose, something would stay. And that was when the house whispered directly into my mind. "Go on. Wake someone else." Someone was awake before me. I stepped through the door, not because I wanted to, because the house had already decided that I would. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the room behind me disappeared. Not collapsed, not faded, forgotten. Like it had never needed to exist once I stopped looking at it. The light ahead felt wrong. Too clean, too quiet. It didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a continuation. I was outside, a different house, a different street. Morning light, birds, normal sounds. Everything looked exactly the way the world is supposed to look when nothing is wrong. That terrified me more than the darkness ever did. Because the house never lies like this unless it's finished with you. I walked. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't need to. The house was no longer behind me. It was with me. Not as walls, not as rooms, as awareness. I could feel it in the pauses between my thoughts, in the moments just before I blinked, in the silence between sounds. That night I tried to sleep. I lay in a bed that wasn't mine, in a room that didn't know me yet. I closed my eyes and waited. Nothing happened. No whispers, no breathing, no presence. For the first time in a very long time, I thought I had one. Then I realized something. I wasn't listening anymore, and that scared me, because listening had always kept me alive. At 2:41 a.m., my eyes opened, not suddenly, naturally, like they had never fully closed. The room was dark, still, peaceful, and yet, I felt it. Someone was awake. Not in the room, not in the house, in the space before thought. I sat up, my heart slow, calm, too calm. I understood then what the house had done. It didn't follow me as a place. It followed me as a habit, as a pattern, as a way of staying awake when the world sleeps. I stood and walked to the mirror. I didn't want to, but I knew it would be there. My reflection looked normal, tired, human, relieved. Then it spoke, not aloud, not silently, somewhere in between. "You brought us somewhere new." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I finally understood. The house never needed walls. It only needed someone who would notice it. Someone who would pay attention. Someone who would listen when nothing was speaking. That's how it survives. Through people like me. Through nights like this. through stories told slowly in the dark. You see, the house is awake right now, not where I came from, not where I am, but where you are, because you stayed, because you listened, because something in the story felt familiar, and because someone was awake before you.